Matt, and we're at Winery Westpark, and today I'm with Paul Cluver of the Cluver Winery of Elgin Valley, South Africa. And today we've got 4 wines that maybe Paul will tell us a little bit about before we actually taste the Chardonnay. And it's just a sampling of their wonderful line of wines. But now I'm just going to turn it over to you, Paul. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about your winery.
Thank you very much. Hi everyone, it's good to be here. All the way from South Africa. We're showing you some wines which is pretty unique. It's from an appellation in South Africa which is fairly new and called Elgin. My father pioneered the first plantings there in the mid-80s, and since then the area's really taken off. Starting to produce pretty fine juice now.
I would say so, yeah.
We've got 4 wines here for you to taste, which ranges from the Sauvignon, the Riesling, Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. I guess the winery itself, we probably bought it a little bit on nepotism. I've got 4 sisters, 3 of them work in the family business, and then my brother-in-law, who's obviously married to one of my sisters, you'd hope.
I would say so, yeah.
But he's the winemaker. They come cheaper that way usually, if you give him a sister, which is a good thing. But the great thing about it is he's actually a phenomenal winemaker, and his working experience ranges from working at some of the finest wineries in South Africa to also working at Chateau Margaux in Bordeaux with Paul Pontellier, and also Philippe Sénat in Burgundy, and hence his ability to work with such fine wines.
Well, it seems to me from tasting the wines today and giving a little smell to the Chardonnay that you definitely have a focus on good balance and elegance. So maybe you could just run through maybe the goals of some of the wines, maybe the treatments on the whites, and then we'll get to the tasty part of drinking the Chardonnay.
Sure. I think the word you mentioned on balance is very, very important for us. Paul Pontellier always said to Andries, there's 3 characteristics of a great wine, which is balance, balance, and balance. And I think too often we try and make wines where we only concentrate on one aspect. A Sauvignon which is predominantly only on the nose and it disappoints on the palate.
Sure.
Or Chardonnay which is so focused and so woody, you can't drink it because it's destroyed the fruit flavors, and the minerality and the acidity is gone in that wine. So I think without a doubt what we try and want to produce are wines that are well balanced and they drink well. I think one of the hallmarks of our area are wines also that are elegant. On the Chardonnay we produce a wine which combines beautifully the characteristics of the oak, but also the minerality of the soil, together with the fruit flavors coming through. And at the end of the palate, you get a wine which is beautifully balanced and elegant.
It just keeps on going. So this is 9 months French oak.
9 months French oak. It's 100% natural ferment. The first time Andries did it, I almost killed him.
Yeah.
Winemakers are...
Can you maybe explain what wild ferment is real quick?
Yeah, wild ferment is when... Usually what we do with wines is it's almost like when you bake bread. You use yeast, and the yeast makes the bread rise. And if you're very brave, you don't use any yeast, and you just hope and pray that it rises. The same thing happens with wine. Is what we'll do is we'll inoculate the wine with yeast, and that will just start the fermentation process. And you'll end up with a wine that's dry, and it turns obviously all the sugar into alcohol. If you're brave, you don't do anything, and you just hope that it starts fermenting spontaneously. In 2000, I walked into the cellar, and Andries was miserable. And I asked him what's wrong, and he said, well, the Chardonnay is not fermenting dry. And I asked him, well, did you add enough yeast? And he said, well, he didn't add any.
Yeah.
And obviously the downside of the stuck ferment, which is when it starts fermenting but it doesn't complete, is that you actually have to throw away the juice, and you have to throw away the barrels. And if you consider that a barrel now is about $1,000 a barrel,
wow.
You destroy all of that. So the risk is fairly high, but I think the reward is just as high. And probably the best way of explaining it for anyone who likes slow cooking, if you cook a leg of lamb overnight and it falls off the bone, that softness of the meat, I think the same thing happens when you do a natural ferment. That slow fermentation process gives you a softer wood integration, so you don't get that harshness of the wood. And I think the reward is much, much better.
And it's quite amazing that you can find this for under $20. So quite a tasty wine. The lineup is fantastic. I would recommend trying any of these. And these are not going to be super widely available because you're doing a total production at the winery of...
Total production of just over 20,000 cases. So,
20,000.
And of that, only about 10% comes to the US. So,
Okay.
Very, very little.
All right, so one last thing that I'd like to ask you before we wrap up. I heard that there might be a super secret concert at an amphitheater that you have at your winery. If you'd like to make maybe one request live to the video of somebody who we could get, this is it.
You know, it's the most amazing venue. You can go and have a look on the website. In the forest, we've got this amphitheater. And obviously it's the ideal place for someone like Sting to come and play unplugged.
Sting.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
600 people, unplugged. If you're watching, you can go to the website and call.
Excellent.
Paul, thanks for coming.
Thank you very much.
The wines are
Nice to be here.
fantastic, and if you have any last words before we toast away.
No, thank you very much to you guys. And
Cheers.
come visit us. Thank you.
Thanks.